Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Danbury. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Danbury. Please silence your phones if you have not done so already. My name is Barbara Myers. I've been a member here for 36 years. I've been involved in RE, on the board, active in organizing the women's retreat, involved with chalice circles. I've sung in the choir for many years. I'm on the green team. I help maintain those landscaping beds, and I'm on the tech team for online services. Hi, Sherry. And of course, the beloved UUCD Goods and Services Auction. You'll be hearing more about that. Yay! The Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Danbury has been gathering together for 200 years. And as we work to build a more just world, we respectfully acknowledge that our physical building is on the traditional land of the Paugussett people. I'm so glad you were able to join us this morning because you are an essential part of our celebration today. Whether today is your first or your 1000th Sunday in our midst, in person or online, we are stronger because you are with us. If you're new to our community and joining us online, we invite you to introduce yourself and where you are connecting from in the chat box as you are comfortable. At the conclusion of today's service, you will have the chance to participate in a breakout group for individual connections and deeper check-ins. If you are new and here in person, please fill out a visitor card at the table near the exit before you leave today and consider staying for a few minutes after the service for coffee and conversation. We are one people of many beliefs, many origins, sexualities, and genders. We are all growing, learning, and all loved. Just as you are welcome here. And now for some announcements. We have two special events coming up. The first is this coming Wednesday, our October community dinner, which just in time for this weather will be a chili fest. 4 kinds of chili, variety of cornbreads, some gluten-free, and a yummy dessert. A few of your fellow UUCD members will do the cooking. Come on, come all, but be prompt as the dinner runs from 5:45 to 6:45. Discussion and activity and choir practice will follow. No RSVP is necessary for this event, the one on Wednesday. Now for the second event. That will take place next Sunday. As part of our 200th anniversary celebration, we will have a special guest speaker for the service, the Reverend Lauren Smith, who is the Director of Stewardship and Development at the Unitarian Universalist Association, will be with us. We are honored to have her. And after the service, please plan to stay for brunch right here in the fellowship hall, which will include a fun trivia game. All are welcome, but we do need you to RSVP for this event, the one on Sunday, because it will be catered and we have to know how many to expect. You can do that either from the email you received, or if you didn't receive an email, just call Sherry, our dear secretary, by this coming Thursday. And now, speaking of our 200th anniversary, we here at UUCD have had some wonderful ministers over the years. You may have noticed our guest speaker 2 weeks ago was one of our former ministers. And today, it is my great pleasure to welcome another of our dear, dear former ministers, the Reverend Barbara Fast. Reverend Barbara served UUCD from 2010 to 2016, moved to Southern California in 2017 with her husband, Jonathan, who is active here too. From 2018 to 2021, she was the developmental minister at the UU Church of the Desert in Rancho Mirage, California. Reverend Barbara retired in 2022 after 21 years of ordained UU ministry. Barbara, we are so happy to have you with us today. Welcome back.
Good morning. Can you see me? Yes. Okay. And you can hear me? Yes. Okay. I didn't know if you could see me. So good morning. It's just a little past 7 here in California. The sun is finally up and you've got me smiling. It's so nice to be back here with you. So let me begin with gratitude. Thank you, thank you, thank you for this invitation. Thank you, Reverend Kathleen. Thank you, Gail. Thank you, Samantha. Thank you, Jerry, for helping me put this together. Sherry, of course. Barbara, thank you all. I just want to share that spirit with you right now. And if I have a glitch or two along the way, just be patient. I haven't done this for a little while. You heard I'm retired. So I have to get the hang of it again. So I want to begin with some opening words because it has been 6 years and they've been quite amazing, difficult, challenging, interesting years. Perhaps for me, I don't know, maybe you felt the same way from time to time. And I thought of this ad that had once been in a newspaper about how sometimes we may feel like this. So bear with me. These opening words are called The Lost Cat. So the ad went, lost cat, missing left ear, broken tail, 3 legs, blind in the right eye, goes by the name Lucky. Thank you. I didn't know how that would land. So sometimes we may feel a bit broken inside and the world feels broken outside, and we are all getting a little older. But if we can reach out in gratitude and appreciation for the breath that we have this day and call ourselves lucky or blessed, I think that may be enough religion. So in that spirit, this will not be a caravan of despair. This is a caravan of celebration this year. Come, come, whoever you are, however you are feeling, and let's sing together.
We will sing it as a round. Those of you here in the fellowship hall will start part 1 here, and then part 2 will join us. Just watch me and I'll get you there. And those at home, just sing whichever part you feel like singing, because loud as you can. 3 times through. Come, come, whoever you are. Come, come. Come, whoever you are, wanderer, worship, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worship, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come. Come, yet again, come.
I invite you to join us in our chalice lighting affirmation. The words are in your order of service or on the screen. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and justice is its light. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth and love, to help one another, and so very well. Hold on, our candle hasn't gotten the message yet. Perfect. Okay. So now I also invite you to join us in our children's affirmations. So if you are ready, you can also find those words on the screen or in your order of service. Please put your U's high in the sky. We are Unitarian Universalists. We are people with open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands. We care for the earth and each other. I'm going to ask you to bear with me for a moment as I set up for the story. I didn't know I was going to have a handheld mic, so that slows me down a little bit. Oopsie. My turkey's head got caught for a minute. Hold on. Oh, my seashells don't want to stay in place, but you get the idea. Okay. This week's story is in recognition of Indigenous Peoples Day and comes to us from our Director of Religious Education, Sierra Marie Gerfeo. It's adapted from an essay by Charles Brilvich, who is Bridgeport's former city historian, and the essay is available to read in full online at the Bridgeport Public Library website if you want to know more. Each week when we gather, we acknowledge that our buildings rest on the traditional land of the Paugussett people. So here's one of the stories about how this came to be. There was a time when the land along the Connecticut coast, west from New Haven Harbor to the Saugatuck River in Westport, and then extending up into the more northern reaches of the Housatonic and Naugatuck rivers, was a gentle paradise for fish, shellfish, various wildlife. The salt and fresh waters of this land were filled with crabs, clams, oysters, salmon, and dozens more species of fish and terrapin. The sky and waters alike were spotted with waterfowl. It was a wide and fertile coastal plain, and it was the territory of the Paugussett people, who promoted its fertile qualities by clearing the underbrush with fire and creating and enriching planting fields filled with corn, beans, squash, tobacco, and Jerusalem artichokes. It may have been this way for thousands of years before the Europeans began to arrive in the 1600s, bringing with them diseases for which the people here had no resistance, as well as slavery and guns by which they forced their way onto these farmlands. While another indigenous group in the area, the Pequots, fought back against the Europeans, going to battle until they could battle no more, the Paugussett people had a different strategy for survival. Having cultivated such rich and fertile lands with the quality area known as Golden Hill still under their control, the Paugussett people did their best to accommodate the invaders from Europe while still living their lives in peace. But the invaders came up with an additional takeover strategy: reservations. They set up the first Paugussett reservation in 1639, forcing the Paugussett people into a vaguely boundaried area that spanned from west of Stratford to east of Fairfield. And just 20 years later, the Europeans forced the entire remaining Paugussett community onto little more than half of that original reservation. And aside from harassing the Paugussett community, with white farmers allowing their cattle to graze the Paugussett cornfields or encroaching on their land in other ways, in 1680, without a hint of concern, the town of Stratford laid out what is now Washington Avenue, and it went right through the middle of those reservation lands, which reduced the tribal allotment to just 80 acres. So then for the next 80 years, the land kept getting picked away and picked away and picked away until it was down to just 8 acres. So this is in the early 1700s. The tribe filed a formal complaint with the General Court in Hartford, but couldn't get justice. After the Revolutionary War, a neighbor named Aaron Hawley demanded some kind of solution for the Paugussett people from the state of Connecticut, and the state named him the official overseer of Paugussett legal and financial affairs. But then he betrayed the tribe by selling off the last of the Golden Hill Reservation to pay himself money that he demanded for his legal services. So though they were left without a home, the Paugussett again made the best they could out of their circumstances. While quietly trying to keep their culture intact, they supported themselves as farmhands, mill hands, woodcutters, and general laborers in country towns throughout the region. Just around the time this congregation was founded, 200 years ago, a Paugussett man named Joel Freeman, who worked on a schooner in Bridgeport, made it his mission to gather the far-flung people of the Paugussett community. Even though the white people who had overtaken the lands demanded that indigenous people take up Protestant Christianity as their religion, indigenous people who did so were still treated as less than human in many cases when they attended those churches. So Freeman became a circuit rider. He was a preacher who traveled between towns in this area like Reading and Monroe, Newtown, and Southbury. And on a summer Sunday in 1828, he gathered the indigenous people from all over southwestern Connecticut for a religious service in Bridgeport under an elm tree, where the Bridgeport Library now stands. Freeman got some property in Bridgeport for this community, and from it, community members launched successful business endeavors, a number of which lasted quite a while. And a man named William Sherman, who was the son of one of the shipyard owners, spent much of his adult life working to secure a permanent land base for the tribe. He purchased a small property in Trumbull that contained an ancient burial ground, and he constructed a house on this property, which he deeded in his will as the permanent Golden Hill Reservation. And this reservation is still there today, and it is the smallest reservation in the United States. It is approximately 1/4 of an acre in size. So it's not possible for the Paugussett people to build multiple homes or a community there. But instead, it is served as a home of the Paugussett chieftain and executive offices for the tribe. Paugussett people remain scattered still, though over the last 30 years, they've turned to the courts and have sought federal recognition and continued return of some of their ancestral lands. And so this story continues in its unfolding in the history that is yet to be written. And now we'll transition to singing This Little Light of Mine and share our light with everyone.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Now we'll transition into the time in our service.
Reverend Barbara, please start your video camera.
Seems that perhaps we're having a technical glitch along the way. So, Jerry, would you lead us in Spirit of Life?
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Our reading this morning, chosen by Reverend Barbara, is an excerpt from Opening Doors, which was written by Universalist Reverend Olympia Brown, who was the first woman to be ordained by a national religious body in America in 1863. And she was a tireless advocate for women's suffrage. It was September 1920. She was 85 years old and was back in the pulpit of her former congregation in Racine, Wisconsin. And it was just a few weeks before she and millions of other women would cast ballots for the first time in a U.S. national election, which would happen on November 2nd, 1920. So Reverend Brown said, "We have had our struggles and our triumphs, our labors and our victories, our sorrows and our joys, and some of us are growing old. Meanwhile, science has been unraveling the mysteries of the universe. All these wonderful scientific discoveries and revelations are proofs of God's unfailing love. Not only by the researches of science are we shown the glories of creation, but the scenes of beauty which daily greet our eyes, the songs of birds, fragrance of flowers, the moonlight shining on the waves, all tell the same story of divine love. What grand acts of self-sacrifice and high courage, what heroism have we seen in innumerable instances during the last few sorrowful years, all showing that there is a soul in man partaking of the divine life. The grandest thing has been the opening of doors to the women of America, giving liberty to 27 million women, opening to them a new and larger life and a higher ideal. They are grander than I thought. There is a divine life in them which this new experience is revealing. The foundation of democracy is the realization that every human being is a child of God, entitled to the opportunities of life, worthy of respect, requiring an atmosphere of justice and liberty for their development. So ends the reading. Which then brings us to transition to our time of offering, where we gratefully receive the donations and contributions of this congregation's members and friends. You will see information on the screen if you would like to use the QR code or the link that will pop into the chat on Zoom. Offering plates will pass here in the fellowship hall. If this is your first time visiting with us, we tell you to please feel free to let the plate pass you by, whether in person or online. Your presence with us is your gift to us. So our offerings will be gratefully received this morning.
Hi, I'm back. All you need is love, but then you also need your Wi-Fi and your Zoom to get through. So hi, I'm sorry I lost you, and but we got through. And you are stronger together. So let's begin this now. This is a sermon about some big ideas that are too big to fit into one morning. They require our whole lives, maybe the long life of a congregation, maybe 200 plus years. They're ideas about intangibles that we strive to make tangible through our lives. Small subjects like mystery, wonder, birth, death, love. And of course, it all starts with a story. There was a boy. It was a Friday afternoon, and he stood outside my minister's office door. His mother and father and baby sister had come inside to talk over memorial service details. His grandmother had died. And the circle of his family, the people who had helped him feel safe and secure, were sad, anxious, preoccupied. What's he feeling? I wondered. Is he sad, angry, confused? All of the above. Maybe he simply couldn't stand it. Grief. Theirs. His grandmother had died. She is dead. And he stands outside my doorway alone. Maybe he was trying to understand it. He knew birth, he'd been born, his baby sister was born, but death, it didn't fit into his life so far. So he looks into my office and his eyes land on this lumpy, cantaloupe-sized, ugly thing on my coffee table. Dried out, peeling, with jagged edges where it had cracked open like a split open broken egg. And it sits in a circle of fallen leaves and small stones, and he cannot take his eyes off of it. So I say, wanna hold it? And he enters, takes it into his hands, turns it this way and that. It's a fallen mud wasp nest. And it's been broken open, vacated, and the honeycomb hexagonal brood cells within are empty. How do they know? I ask him. And he looks at me. How do they know? I ask. It's my favorite question. So I stick my fingertip into one of the exposed empty holes, one exactly like the others. Perfection. And he looks and he touches the parchment-like skin and explores the ragged rims of those incubators and the strength of its construction, its lightness, its mystery. How do they do that? I mean, how do they do that? I don't know. Do you know? Well, I know we say it's evolutionary inheritance is DNA, but okay, where does that come from? What power provokes these buzzing, annoying to us, scary to us creatures without brains, season after season, to take up dust into their hands, chew it like a communion wafer, mix it with saliva, and spit it out as a paste to paint, layer, and lacquer this miracle of a multiple dwelling, sitting up in a tree with room to birth multitudes of life. Mud wasp love is what I call it. That mansion of creation has many rooms. And so I asked him, where have they gone? And as he wondered, his parents and I talked over the service where grandma's ashes would be spread. I invited them to bring something to put into or lay upon the earth. And I wonder, where has grandma gone? And then how is it possible? Every one of us one day. The next day, Saturday, we grieve her death, celebrate her life. We place those dusty ashes into the embrace of the earth. We say simple things, we shed tears, and he looks around at all of us. Little sister has laid a flower. How is he, I wonder? Did I do enough? I wonder. And then the earth turns and it's Sunday and the building is finally quiet after services and I'm in my office all alone. And that boy walks right in, stands by the mud love nest, and his father leans in and says to me, he has something he wants to give you. And the boy cradles some fallen leaves, places them around the broken nest, widening the circle. And I go to him and I say, thank you. They're beautiful. And the boy leaves. His father trots back in to tell me what his son said to him about this time in his life. Sometimes his heart is too big to fit inside his body. Sometimes his heart is too big to fit into his body. And I am broken open again. Sometimes a heart is too big to fit into a body. A day comes when we bury grandmothers, fathers, mothers, daughters, brothers, fathers, sons. Friends and strangers fall in wars waged for no good reason, are shot on the streets of our nation for no good reason, are shot in our schools for no good reason. We live with losses large and small, disasters, nature or human made. Lives are tossed, livelihoods lost. And then let's include those happy life passages that break us open: weddings, births, graduations, anniversaries, homecomings, the renewal of life, daily, weekly, seasonally, yearly. For those who have celebrated this New Year's high holy days just past, La Shana Tova, may we have a good year. And your affirmation that I love, especially we help one another and celebrate life. I love that. That's the core of this sermon. And so good for you on 200 years, even though there were some broken threads along that path. Our whole lives, there are times when our hearts break and become too big to fit into our body. And so we must grow and learn the histories. We need to reteach ourselves so we can get larger in our hearts and our heads. And there are days when our hearts just break us so that we can, over time, make room in here to awaken us so we can open our arms and embrace life as it is and as it must become. To raise flags of welcome over and over and over, as I've heard you've done, and include now a larger body of human beings that we hold within the circle of our care. To cross thresholds, look around, reach out, sometimes even get out of our comfort zones. That big love, that too big to fit love, commands us, thou shalt love. And not just when it's easy or comfortable or we're feeling good about it and ourselves. It's also there waiting, inviting, commanding us, even when life gets a little ugly, or we do, when we're afraid, feeling broken in a whole variety of ways. Can you love? Can I love? I've wondered, even then. By which I mean, can we withstand the powers that tell us we're not good enough, even when those voices might be in our heads, that we can't do it, we shouldn't make too many waves, we should go along to get along, or go away? Can I ask myself, understand the broken parts within self, a neighbor, a neighborhood? Understanding with that big love, so that someplace we know that we are not alone, despite all the evidence to the contrary. What was needed in this world 200 years ago, what is needed now and forever, perennially requiring renewal, is a people who have faith enough to live out of that bigger love. See the blessings around us. Call up that sense of being lucky, even with everything that's broken. A more perfect union, perhaps, a greater communion for humanity. The people who planted this congregation laid that cornerstone, although So one of you will have to tell me where it is now. It used to be in front of the office there. That cornerstone, those people had that kind of too big, bigger love and faith. And that's what, for me, universalism has all been about, that bigger love. I mean, you know this already. You are a Unitarian Universalist congregation with Universalist roots, but consider this your booster shot from Barbara. Universal salvation, God's love is bigger than anything else, and that translates to not some other time, not somewhere else, but now, in this life. All are fully human, fully worthy, deserving of respect, dignity, and liberty. That demanding big love, really too big. And when we hear histories and stories, as Samantha read to us this morning, our hearts break too. Right? What do we do now that we know? Universalists proclaimed universal salvation, and it's come to be understood that all are inherently worthy and deserving of respect. Dignity, no exception, not a color of skin or gender identity, religion, sexuality, immigration status, age, or ability. Universalists ordained the first woman to ministry, Olympia Brown, who stood with and fought for equality. And she proclaimed, despite all the evidence to the contrary, that there's a divine spirit of life in every human being, so that we are all endowed with worth and dignity, no exception. Age 85, 102 years ago, she preached that to survivors in a world that broke open after the horrors of World War I, a killing flu pandemic, mortal conflict between science and religion, robber barons and plutocrats who gathered, and kleptocrats who stole the wealth of nations, nothing like today. And the evils, what? Jim Crow rooting itself in the constitutions and customs of the southern states, the trails of sorrow for the indigenous peoples of this land. She preached in a divinity abiding within the human spirit, despite so much evidence to the contrary. And those are the times when big love and faith are needed most. Talk about counterculture. Look at that cornerstone. Whether it's stone or mud, love calls us to build and rebuild community. Just as a nest is recreated season after season out of love that is irrepressible, so we must take the dust of our mortality, combine it with our tears, chew it over with the juicy spit of love, and then apply it season after season within ourselves, communities, our relationships, and celebrate that recreation. Nothing could be more practical for our time than to be open to a love that is too big to fit into any one body or body of readings, rituals, creeds, customs too big to fit into a Zoom room, a church, a synagogue, a mosque, a temple, or meeting house. Too big really to name or explain, which is very frustrating for ministry for me. It's a love that just won't let you go, that requires that we open closed doors of habits and hearts. It doesn't happen right away. And it doesn't mean they stay open. We turn around and around and around ourselves. But we can learn. And there is history yet to be written and lived, and stories yet to be told. And we just don't know what love might be coming for us. Olympia Brown said, after all that destruction and loss, joyfully at age 85, we've had our struggles and our triumphs and our labors and our victories, our sorrows and joys, and some of us are growing old. Amen to that. Meanwhile, the foundation of democracy is the realization that every human being is a child of God, entitled to the opportunities of life, worthy of respect, requiring an atmosphere of justice and liberty for their development. And she even got to vote. I guess I've got some voting on my mind. It's been a gift, friends, for me to be able to meditate on our times together, appreciating what we did, mostly you, and also some of what didn't get done. And that's just what was. My heart got bigger. Just thinking about you. Really, that's what I got to do these weeks. I worried a little too whether this message, some of which you might have heard before, but who remembers a sermon? Huh? So I thought I'd share with you a story that just won't let me go. Age lets you look back, and if you allow yourself to touch those traces of your life with an attitude of gratitude, then what you remember can bless you in the wholeness of your failing and frail humanity. And I have seen that divine spirit in you. And you more than once helped me find it in myself. And you have accomplished so much since we parted. There's that which was visibly done, which Samantha told me about, all those flags you've got. And the basement is now RE space, and you've got a bigger parking lot. And there's the solar, and there's the eighth principle, and there's just who you are through all those candles. Thank you for letting me hear and see your lives again. You are and have always been, in my experience, a community that leans on one another and that strives to live out your big love values. You do the work, you celebrate your shared life, and you like each other. And folks, if you're newish here, whether you're online or in the building, this is a great gathering of wonderful spirits. So I'm going to end as I began. I want to thank you. We found our way through some challenging times. And I remembered a time when I felt myself wrestling with a big uncertainty. And in a Sunday sermon, I included myself. I asked that you pray for your minister. Me. I didn't stop myself for fear I'd sound weak. I didn't worry about the word. I trusted you, that you would hold that request in your hearts. And the asking was enough. I could feel the room. I leaned on you and you leaned in. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I think in my mind, I'm trying to travel 3,000 miles. And I feel like I'm almost in the room with you. That's pretty cool. Since our parting in that spring of 2016, there have been times these past 6 years when I did wake in the night in fear of what my life or our lives and the lives of our children might become. Thank you, Wendell Berry. We were locked down and retired. I wearied and despaired that so much was being lost or broken or betrayed. I found comfort in that idea of big love. Reverend Rebecca Parker put it well. Even when our hearts are broken by our own failure or the failure of others, cutting into our lives, even when we've done all we can and life is still broken, there's a universal love that has never broken faith with us and never will. Science tells us that we have been and are a part of, not apart from, the universe. Since the start, we are made from the dust of dead stars. So there is no gone. There is no gone. We are born out of, live in the midst of, die into immeasurable ministry. The dust of dead stars. Olympia Brown would have loved that science. I am, you are, that boy now well into adulthood, all of us, just itsy bitsy bits of stardust, alive for now. So, Unitarian Universalists of Danbury, as you look behind and ahead and around you, after 200 years, take the hands of your neighbors, friends, even those companions in faith through the ages. We are all held by a big love, greater than anyone can stand or understand. Feel the pulse of your time along the lifeline of this community and celebrate, enjoy. How lucky you are. And even though some of us may feel and look more like that old cat, busted up inside and out, lucky is still our name. Blessed to be alive right now. Thank you.
Before we extinguish our chalice, I'm going to take a moment of personal privilege to thank Reverend Barbara here publicly and just say that you being willing to join us today and take the time and do all of this, that's an act of big love for us, and we're so grateful. So now please join me as we extinguish our chalice. The words are in your order of service as well as on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth. And out into the world until we are together again. So now please join us in our hymn of celebration. It's in the teal hymnal if you'd like to follow along, but the words are also on the screen. Lean on me.
Sometimes in our lives, we all have pain, we all have sorrow. But if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Please swallow your pride if I have things you need to borrow, for no one can feel those of your needs that you won't let show. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. If there is a load you have to bear, you can carry. I'm right up the road, I'll share your load. If you just call me, lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Just call on me, brother, when you need a hand. We all need somebody to lean on. I just might have a problem. Understand, we all need somebody to lean on.
That's me. So, closing words, what the traditional, slightly adapted that I would share with you on most Sundays. So it felt good to call it to mind again. So may the road rise to meet you. May the wind always be at your back. May the rain fall soft upon your fields and the sun shine warm upon your face until we meet again. May love hold you in the hollow of their hands. Keep the faith, friends. Bring the love, be the peace, and bless everyone, no exception. And let the people say, Amen. 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 Yes. And Sherry, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Sam, thank you, Sherry, everybody, thank you, thank you. And sing us out in that postlude.
I've heard it said that people come into our lives for a reason, bringing something we must learn, and we are led to those who help us most to grow if we let them, and we help them in return. Well, I don't know if I believe that's true, but I know I'm who I am today because I knew you. Like a comet pulled from orbit as it passes the sun, like a stream that meets a boulder halfway through the wood. Who can say if I've been changed for the better? But because I knew you, I have been changed for good. It well may be that we will never meet again in this lifetime. So let me say before we part, so much of me is made of what I learned from you. You'll be with me like a handprint on my heart. And now whatever way our stories end, I know you have rewritten mine by being my friend. Like a ship blown from its mooring by a wind off the sea, like a seed dropped by a skybird in a distant wood. Who can say if I've been changed for the better? But because I knew you, because I knew you, I have been changed for good. And just to clear the air, I ask forgiveness for the things I've done you blame me for. But then I guess we all know there's blame to share, and none of us seem to matter anymore. Like a comet pulled from orbit as it passes the sun, like a stream that meets a boulder halfway through the wood. Who can say if I've been changed for the better? I do believe I have been changed for the better, because I knew you, because I knew you. I have been changed for good.